Wendy's. How can I help you?
Hi, this is Special Agent Smith with the Secret Service. I was calling in regards to a memo we sent over to your franchise branch manager a couple weeks back.
I wouldn't have any information on that.
Is there anyone there who might know?
Uh, Maybe if you call back in the morning, the GM would be here. He would know.
Okay, I will do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, sir.
Well, the opening bit to the Halloween special has been ruined, folks. It's been ruined. Welcome to Alternative Jargon episode number 53. I wanted to go with something different, maybe a little cold open type thing, but whoever is working at Wendy's tonight, my local Wendy's, does not want to allow that to happen. I had it all rigged up. I was Special Agent Smith from the Secret Service, the Trump division of the Secret Service, and I was calling in regards to a memo we sent over to the Wendy's franchise manager of that location a couple weeks back. We never heard back. Long story short, I was going to hand the phone over to Donald Trump and let him have a sales pitch because he already went to McDonald's but it's ruined. There is no opening bit. But frankly, he really wanted to see about that Krabby Patty meal. Look, I was just over at McDonald's the other week. We had a lot of fun. It was a great time, and I wanted to get Wendy's in on it. I think that Gen Z probably loves probably loves Wendy's after the introduction of the Krabby Patty meal. But, frankly, it's not going to happen. Nonetheless, this is the second annual Alternative Jargon Halloween special. You know, once a year I really like to spend a little more time developing something instead of just pooping out a podcast, frankly, every week. That's all this is. But yeah, we're gonna discuss some stuff. We're gonna discuss some spooky stuff. But let's be honest, a lot has happened. It's been over a month since I posted an episode. A lot's happened. So we are going to touch on some spooky stuff. We're going to touch on some other maybe spookier stuff because it is some politics, you know. It's really scary. This is being recorded on Tuesday, October 29th. So we have exactly 1 week until the election. So yeah, the 29th. 1 week. But, you know, I thought about this. It's funny, I'm wearing the same black crew neck as I did in last year's Halloween episode. But I was thinking earlier today, it's kind of outrageous that this is a Halloween episode and I don't have a costume. So, I will use my handy dandy spooky light here. This is a Burger King crown with the Addams Family on it that my mother brought home to me a few weeks ago. Thanks, Mom, for the costume. Couldn't have done it with this week without you. So I am garbed. I'm ready to go. I don't know how long I'm going to last with this lamp in my hand to provide some spooky undertones. We'll see how that goes. I'm definitely going to have like a black spot at the bottom of my vision for the next week. But anyway, speaking of Donald Trump, he just had his rally yesterday in Madison Square Garden. And this was a very big event. It got a lot of coverage, you know, the fact that Donald Trump can hold a rally and garner a lot of supporters to come out and see him and whoever else he invited along for the ride in downtown New York City, in the biggest city in the country, one of the most liberal cities in the country. It was a big event. it would be like Kamala Harris going to the Deep South and having, an event at your local VFW pool hall. I would kind of compare it to that. Um, there's very few places more hostile for Trump to probably go into than New York City, which is ironic because that's where he's from. He's probably one of the most, if not the most, iconic New Yorkers in the history of the city and in the history of our country. Who would beat Trump in a New Yorker contest? Jay-Z, maybe? Look, there's so many people from New York. Half the time you look up an actor or one of your favorite musicians, you go, oh, where were you born? And it's like it's a hospital that has 18 names in its name, but then at the end, New York, New York. New York, New York. I think Trump was born in like a Jamaican hospital or something, if I remember correctly, back in the day, back in the 40s. Now, obviously, Trump, the most polarizing, hated / loved / revered / infamous characters of the last decade, and the most famous man on the planet, probably. Anytime he does anything, you know this stuff. You're not 5. But Trump decided to have one guest that definitely spoke out and stuck out to the media a little bit more than the rest. And, of course, I'm talking about the funniest man in the world. He needs no introduction to people who have not seen the sun in 3 weeks. Tony Hinchcliffe, everybody, come on down! Come on down, Tony! Tony Hinchcliffe is a piece of crap. And no, I'm not a reactionary Twitter liberal saying that. No, I have never liked Tony Hinchcliffe. This is a Tony Hinchcliffe hate show. He's not funny, and that's not the only thing about him that makes him not one of my favorite people. Look, here's the thing. Being a comic that other people don't necessarily find funny is one thing, but being a comic that is, to me, not funny, but his whole shtick, his whole show, his whole career is about him sitting on a stage with his other friends and a soundboard and a live band. They get to sit up there and be the gatekeepers of comedy. That has always rubbed me the wrong way. I don't think anybody should be the gatekeeper of comedy. Look, the Kill Tony show is a really great premise and idea on paper. And if it was led and sort of done by anybody else, I think it could be really good. But this little dude, Tony Hinchcliffe, is just, he's not the guy. And I don't know how he became the guy to be at the helm of that show. And look, I'm not the guy either, because I don't really like stand-up comedy. I'm in no way implying that I am the guy. I don't know who the guy is. I don't know if there is a guy, because comedy is subjective. Obviously, though, you can differentiate stand-up, because stand-up is an art form that is, there's some sets that are objectively better than others. But, oh man. Every time there's a new big guest on Kill Tony, I groan and I go, this guest that came on the show and carried the whole show is going to make so much money for Tony Hinchcliffe. And it's unfortunate. I don't know what you get paid to go on Kill Tony as a guest, to like actually sit there and roast people and be part of the panel or board or whatever you want to call it. They definitely make good money. But yeah, a lot of people mad at Tony Hinchcliffe. I don't care who you're voting for or what you think. I don't think what happened on Sunday was good for Trump. I really don't. The optics of that event just, I mean, how many undecided voters are really left? I don't know. Probably 12. But it wasn't a good look. This is a political rally, and there definitely is a time and place for humor, and I don't think there's a time and place for Tony Hinchcliffe, though. Can we get him out of Get him the hell out of here. Get him out. We want him out right now. Yeah, it just wasn't good. And after just about every joke, here's the funny thing. Here is the really, really funny thing to me about the Tony Hinchcliffe speech at MSG is that Tony's whole brand is like, yeah, comedy is, you might get your feelings hurt, dude, and I'm going to sit here and roast you. Your set sucked. I'm going to roast you. And, that's his whole thing. But then after almost every joke he told at Madison Square Garden, the crowd was almost so uncomfortable. Like, there were a couple chuckles here and there, and then you could tell people were kind of like looking around at the people next to him like, what the hell is going on here? After almost every joke, Tony would like kind of backtrack a little and be like, wow, usually they don't play the national anthem before I do a set and all this stuff. But then of course he keeps going. He kept going with it. It just wasn't a great look. And now somebody out there listening to this, or if right-wing Twitter got a hold of this, they'd go, dude, you what are you, the next Harry Sisson? I'm not gonna disclose who I'm voting for. We need to normalize that again. I miss the good old days when nobody really knew anything about each other, especially their political beliefs. I don't even know if I'm going to vote. We'll see. It depends how long the line is. But yeah, it wasn't a good look, in my opinion. So anyway, that was probably the scariest thing we are going to get to. The actual Halloween stuff I have planned might not be as scary as 10 minutes of Mr. Hinchcliffe with a mic in his hand. Recently, I finished up a book. You know what? I have the book right back here. Let me grab the book for you. Little show and tell. It's a little show and tell. Okay. Can you see that? This is the book I just finished reading recently. It is H.P. Lovecraft, Cthulhu Mythos Tale. I'm holding this lamp like it's the mic. Every time I do a show, I would always use my voice memos just on my iPhone because it's pretty good audio quality. Yeah, I forgot to mention that too. We have a mic now. Look at that. It only took 3 years of doing this show to finally get one of those. And the only reason I got it, because, this thing has worked good for 3 years. The only reason I got it is literally to do that prank call bit at the very beginning, because I can't record a phone call and the audio, And Mr. down at Wendy's just had to give me... He gave such a good answer, too. And that's... Whenever you do a prank call live on air, you are hoping that the most unprofessional, high on their weed pen guy picks up to talk to. This guy just picked up a phone call that he might think is from the Secret Service, and he kept his cool and said, dude, I don't know. Talk to the guy in tomorrow. He kind of beat me there. That guy did good. I don't know if he said his name. I think he said some other guy's name who might be able to answer. But that guy deserves a raise. You just take Secret Service straight to the chin and go, dude, call back tomorrow. That's kind of savage. That is a little bit savage. But anyway, this is the book. H.P. Lovecraft, Cthulhu Mythos Tales. If you haven't ever heard of H.P. Lovecraft, he was a dude, wrote a lot of stuff in the 20s, 30s, a lot of spooky stuff. Definitely a horror legend for what he has contributed to that genre of movies and TV and books and everything. Apparently, he was also a vehement racist, even for his time, which the early 20th century, almost anything went in terms of racism, back then. But apparently, he even excelled at it back then. So the guy must have been pretty racist. He had a name for his cat that I'm not going to say on this show. If I said the name of his cat, I would lose my job and my standing in society. So I'm going to just go with redacted on the name of his cat. You can look it up for yourself and figure it out. But this book really did blow me away. So if you have never heard of this guy, maybe you've heard of Cthulhu, the big squid guy. Maybe you've heard the term Lovecraftian horror be thrown around before, but so much pop culture stems from the works of H.P. Lovecraft. Now, basically, if you've ever seen a piece of content that checks one of these boxes, it was kind of direct inspiration from Lovecraft. If you saw something with a squid, with a tentacle, with cashiers at underwater fast food chains, with sponges that fry burgers, no, that's a joke. But if you saw squids, tentacles, space entities, ancient cults that worship great old gods, so to say, or pagan gods or something, or like something that includes creepy crawly body horror type stuff, it was probably most likely either adapted from or inspired from a work of H.P. Lovecraft. Now, the creepy crawly stuff is my least favorite part. There were actually parts in this book where they were describing like one of the monsters or one of the gods, whatever you want to call it, and I actually had to like put the book down for a second. And I've never liked that stuff. If something has more than 4 legs, get it away from me. If something has a hard shell and beady black eyes and goes across the floor, no thanks. I don't really mind like I have nothing against snakes or reptiles, but a lot of the monsters in this book were combinations of everything. It would be like a giant 10-foot tall cylinder with tentacle arms, and it glides around on like a million little legs, like, oh, it's gross. And then it would have like crab claws at the end of its tentacles and big wings. And the dude was just throwing anything on anything. Definitely, he played around with more options than are available in like the Bitmoji store. He went full customization with the I was going to say guys. I did not just have a stroke on air, just stumbling over my words, but he really went all out with his monsters. But the part that more interested me about these stories, there's like 20 some stories in here, but this thing is dense. I wish you could hold this book and pick it up. You could do like bicep curls with it and maybe see some results. But the stuff that more interests me about Lovecraft is the cult side of things. Something is fun about stumbling across a secret demonic cult that worships godlike deities in a quaint little New England town. You vacation up to Salem to do a corn maze and drink coffee from a different state and feel like you're in an 80s Halloween movie. It's warm, it's not warm temperature-wise, but it's cozy. It's New England. And then if you stumble off the beaten path, according to Lovecraft in New England, you will find a town or an area or a strip of houses or a church that just doesn't seem quite right. And you ask the locals, you're like, what's going on here? Like, the vibes are just off. Not a great ratio when I walk past the church. Something's just weird here. And they will be very, very suspicious in their answer, or they'll help you out. There were a few stories from Lovecraft where they did help the protagonist out, and they're like, dude, get out of here. And of course, the protagonist doesn't listen. He goes looking through people's stuff. He goes to the church that has a big squid head on it. I mean, what do you expect? Doing stuff like that. But the one story, this guy, it's called The Shadow of Innsmouth. It's about a town that there's like a coral reef right out off the shore of this town. And supposedly the reef came up because the dude who was like the richest guy in the town made a deal with these monsters from outer space or from below the ocean. It's hard to keep track. And he basically made a deal so that him and all his kids could like turn into fish people and live forever. So, but in that one, the guy gets one of the locals so drunk that he will tell him the story. And then it turns out that guy is actually his ancestors were the fish cult people. So then at the end of the story, he actually goes crazy and goes back to Innsmouth and joins the cult himself. Stuff like that is very interesting to me. And I've always loved the, I guess, horror or even true crime about cults, because that is so interesting. It's so interesting how a group of people can just fall in line, especially with some crazy theories and crazy people, and just fully give their life up to that. However, I will say one thing. Every time I read a book, I have to go online, see what other people think. It was a little harder for this one because it's not one book. It's a bunch of stories in one. But they all are basically the same premise, just with minor differences here and there. But one of the things that people don't talk about is in all of these Lovecraft tales, the cults are completely justified. So in most of these, there are quote-unquote great old ones or old gods that have been living on the earth or in the earth for billions of years, way longer than humans have even been around. They have technologies and biological traits that we couldn't even comprehend. They can kind of communicate with just thinking to one another, and they can even like plant thoughts in the heads of humans because they're just that powerful. But a lot of these, in a lot of the stories, the great old ones, whatever you want to call them, the squid guys that live under the earth's crust or whatever, they don't really want to hurt people. They've just always been here, and they just kind of want to chill underground and hang out. Rip some galaxy gas or something. I don't know what they're up to down there. But so they're kind of like, yeah, we just want to chill. And humans have kind of gotten good at like killing stuff in the last couple thousand years. So we kind of just want to leave them alone. We don't need to make any enemies. So what the fish god people do is they're like, okay, well, there are this many entrances to our underworld on the surface of the earth. And we really want to keep these like protected because we're just trying to do our own thing. We need to keep our southern border wall very strong. That's pretty much what they say to each other. And so they will like recruit humans to be part of their cult and worship them and kind of help them stay secret. Now there are some of the cults that are like that. And those ones are kind of okay, at least in my book, as long as you're not like, sacrificing every firstborn in town to Cthulhu to keep the gateway shut. You're good, in my opinion. maybe a couple sacrifices here and there, kill a goat or something to keep the portal shut. Do what you got to do. But there are other cults, though, that worship the old gods, whatever, in a different way, where they're like, nah, we want them to rise again and destroy Earth. Because if I help them do that, then they'll make me like one of them and we'll live forever and travel space and it'll be sick. And then I won't have to hit galaxy gas. Then I will just fly through the universe and inhale real galaxy gas. Maybe that's the biological trait / technology that we don't have, that the Cthulhu's use. And in that case, Kanye is well on his way to immortality, along with a lot of other people these days, you know? I don't know, has the galaxy gas thing died down? I haven't seen much about it recently. And maybe that's because all of the people that were doing it a couple months ago are 6 feet underground. I don't know what the deal is there, but you have to think that the guy who owns the Galaxy Gas brand has to have like a portfolio of like Galaxy Gas, life insurance, and then, you know, funeral home. Not sure. If he was smart, he or she, if they were smart, they would do that. But yeah. Another thing about Lovecraft, and a lot of authors do this, is he will invent fake towns. You don't want to use the name of a real town and then have it get like nuclear bombed by an alien and like everyone there dies. It's just, unless it's New York or LA, you can't get away with that, especially in little quaint New England towns where Lovecraft loves to set his stories. People would be kind of mad if you were like, dude, we have like, there's like 300 people in our little village. Like, my wife just gave birth and you want to wipe us off the map. I wouldn't be very happy with Mr. HP. So, he'll invent fake towns. I mean, Stephen King does it. Lots of people do it. But, it would have to be funny to be from the places where the authors do these fake towns. Because, indubitably, they use a lot of characteristics of real towns. They have to draw their inspiration from somewhere. My favorite town in the Lovecraft mythos was definitely Arkham, Massachusetts. Because, first of all, it's a cool name. Reminds me of Batman. But, second of all, this was a town that, like, it was in, like, half the stories in this book. And it's just like, yeah, another dreary, cold, rainy day in Arkham. Some guy just screamed that he saw a witch and jumped off his roof, got impaled. There's some guy chanting in a language with hieroglyphs that we do not yet understand right outside the university. And, oh, by the way, the university library has like 20 volumes of ancient cult books. And anyone who really looks at them goes nuts and dies. So, I did exaggerate some of those, but you get the premise. It's like, all right, when do you just look for a U-Haul and look for a new town? But it would have to be funny, like I was saying, always get sidetracked, to live in that area, see what town they're actually duplicating. Maybe H.P. Lovecraft's ex lived in a town that was just too strangely resembled in a story where it gets attacked by a demonic squid. You're not slick, Lovecraft. Maybe Stephen King will write a new book about a political opponent that he doesn't like, and he'll make it take place in Butlerville, Pennsylvania. You're not slick. We all see what you're doing. But, look, call me a nerd. Call me whatever you want. But reading this book was just another example to me about how reading classic stuff is awesome. So much. Basically, 100%, almost 100% of every form of media you see today draws so much inspiration from stuff that was already done before because it's hard to think of brand new things. It's basically impossible. And reading stuff that was the first thing to do those things is awesome because it's like, all right, this dude had ideas in his head 100 years ago that if he didn't write this down on paper, the industry would be different. Okay. H.P. Lovecraft has been in so much stuff, and he hasn't been in anything. You get to see the origins of different tropes, topics, genres. I mean, you've all seen something that has a scary cult and a big tentacle monster. You've all seen it, whether you've watched a Godzilla movie or you play Call of Duty Zombies. I mean, it's everywhere, and it blew me away. And basically, every time I read a classic book, it's like that. It's like, wow, that thing that you think is so like stereotypical and boring that's in every movie. This guy was doing it 200 years ago. Not in the case of Lovecraft, he's 100, but still, it's amazing. It is really, really cool, if you ask me. Everything that comes out today is sort of an amalgamation of so many things that have come before it. But books, classic books, are just raw. It is like Monday Night Raw. You're getting a story in the most bare bones fashion. It's just words on a page. You have to make the movie in your head. And I would say most movies and TV shows are based on books. So that's another thing. It's like this, you write down a thing, and the barrier for entry with a book is the lowest out of any form of media. It's the lowest. And yet it is the hardest to master and the hardest to write something and produce something that could someday live longer than your own lifespan. And that is really a cool thing about books. You can write a book as a person if you have like $50 in your pocket. Think about the barriers for entry for making like anything else. If you want to make a video, you need a camera or a phone that has a camera. If you want it to be anything decent, you're going to need some type of software to edit it. You're going to need maybe a microphone. You're going to need all this stuff. If you want to do a podcast, you can really podcast with a phone. I have a pet peeve, and my one pet peeve is that the Instagram comments where it's obviously a really bad podcast clip. And yes, some of mine are, all right? I'm not perfect. But it's a really bad clip, and then all the comments say we should make podcast equipment cost $1 trillion. That does bother me, and it bothers me even more when somebody is just getting into a hobby, podcasting or anything else, and they go and buy the most expensive stuff. It really bothers me. To make a podcast, you need a phone. The Voice Memos app comes with every iPhone. If you don't want video in your podcast, you could make a podcast with a phone. But nonetheless, a phone is like $1,000 anymore. Once again, big barrier of entry. You need $50. You could go to the store and buy the cheapest Chromebook. Anything that has a keyboard. Or, if you want to go even crazier, you could go buy a wide-ruled notebook and a Bic pen for like $3, if that, and write a book. I wouldn't recommend that method. I would get on the home row keys and practice your typing skills. That would definitely be more efficient than writing it. But to each his own. You can do it that way if you really want. I apologize for all the stuttering this episode. I had 2 white monsters before I hit the record button, and I think I'm starting to feel it a little bit. A little bit. And back to the podcast clip thing. This is just a side note, but I don't like the way that I sound in most of my clips that I post to YouTube and wherever. The one thing that sucks about my show, out of many, is that I feel like a lot of the jokes I make or the things I say, you really do need like 3 minutes of build up to it. Nobody's attention span is that long. So I have to make something look decent in 10 seconds, but I probably just suck. It might just be that I suck. That might be it. But yeah. Last thing I'm going to touch on with Lovecraft, and then I'll give you the bell ringer. We can maybe get out of here. Is there's no way to disprove Lovecraftian horror. Most horror is just outrageous. What are the odds that it's possible someday that some dude can go on a killing spree and be unkillable? Michael Myers, Jason, all those guys. There's not really a way to disprove a lot of horror, but this is one that I think it would be easier for people to believe over others because space is infinite and vast as far as we know, unless there is a firmament and it is flat. Who knows? But yeah, it's all out there. Who knows what type of beings are out there? Who knows what type of beings are below us? You know, one of the craziest things is that the Earth is like 20,000 miles in diameter, and I think we've only ever dug like... Let me look this up, because I want to know. It's not far at all. Deepest hole in the world. Okay, the deepest hole in the world is 40,000 feet deep, which is, what is that, around 8 miles? A little less than 8 miles? 8 miles deep? Think about that. 8 miles. That sounds so deep. If you were standing above a wishing well and someone said, yeah, this thing is 8 miles deep, you'd be like, that's like to the next town over. It sounds really deep. But the Earth is 20,000 miles in diameter. I'm going to fact check myself. I'm saying that with my chest too much. I might be wrong. Earth diameter. Yeah, I'm way off. Holy. Sorry. That's why you fact check. Earth is only a little under 8,000 miles in diameter. Whoops. But yeah, nonetheless, that is 0.1% of the Earth's 0.1% of the Earth's full diameter is how far we've gone down. Who knows if there are pentacles down there? There probably are. So, yeah. And maybe all these people you think are evil occultists are just trying to keep Cthulhu peaceful. All right? Probably some of the worst people that you've heard of. Diddy, Epstein, Al Capone. That guy that played Madison Square Garden. You know, they're probably just good guys. And I'm not talking about the one on Sunday. I'm talking about a different guy who played MSG. No, not Rogan either. 80 years ago. But obviously that's where conspiracies get dangerous. Because it could make you believe anything. I don't believe anything I just said. It was a joke. Joke, joke, joke. YouTube. Joke. Humor. Joke. YouTube. A lot's happened since we were together last, and 2 of the worst movies probably ever made came out. Megalopolis and Joker Folie à Deux came out. Some of the worst rated movies ever. Some of the highest budgets ever with the lowest return rates ever. I haven't seen either. They are on my list. They're probably going to be out of theaters soon, but they'll be on Fubi or Tubi or Freebie or Booby or something in a week, and you'll be able to watch them there. Whatever the streaming services are called, they're going to be on there, especially because they did so poorly. Francis Ford Coppola will probably sell the rights to Megalopolis for like a bag of chips. But one thing I do love about that movie, I want to see that one more than Joker. And the reason why is because everyone's calling it weird, and I've seen some clips. It looks weird. but it does look like a movie that's is really not trying to be like other things, which I'm interested in. And also, Francis Ford Coppola, one of the greatest directors in the history of film. He's really old now, and he put like 100 million of his own personal dollars into the movie, and that shows me, hey, he's old. He don't care about the money. He don't care about this or that other directors need. He doesn't have to worry, this has to make $1 billion because we owe Robert Downey Jr. half of that. He doesn't have to worry about stuff like that. So maybe it is something good. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and make a prediction and say that Megalopolis, give it 5 years, it'll be like a cult classic. Give it 5 years. I mean, it's already kind of started. I know this is old news at this point, but the clip of Adam Driver saying, so go back to the club, that has already kind of become its own thing. And maybe he will join like the Sigma-verse with Jake Gyllenhaal and Christian Bale. I think that could happen. He's got one foot in the Sigma door right now after his reprisal of Kylo Ren and the guy from BlacKkKlansman. I have never seen BlacKkKlansman all the way through, actually. I've caught it on... It's always playing on a channel like Vice or like FX, one of those. And I've caught like most of it. But Adam Driver is a good guy, right? Because he's just a spy, I think. But yeah. I think Megalopolis will be a cult classic. Another thing that's been happening recently, everyone's on a podcast. Trump went on Rogan. That's very historic, whether you are for it or against it. 30 million views in like 2 or 3 days. That's just currently... that thing is going to eclipse a very high view count for a podcast. It's already probably the most viewed, listened to podcast of all time. JD Vance went on Theo Von and Tim Dillon. I haven't watched all of those the whole way through, but I gotta say, I did see some clips, and Mr. Vance, what's with the language? I heard the word shit a couple times. Mr. Vance. I heard it. You are putting that vote at risk. All right. We thought you were just this nice, down-to-earth guy who went to Yale. Mr. Vance, you gotta be careful. But no, I do think those podcasts were really good for JD Vance, especially, when it was first announced that he was Trump's running mate, everyone was like, who is this guy? And then they were like, oh, he looks like, just a dude. But I think he did good on these from what I saw. And I know what you're all thinking. I will address the elephant in the room. When am I going to have heads of state on the show? We did have a few reach out. I didn't really like their terms. Kamala offered to come on the show. Sorry, Kamala. My bad. Trump actually wanted to come on too. Both of them, though, they weren't offering me any type of real pay. Instead, they were offering me a full-time position to be an arm of their propaganda network. And I just wouldn't be able to sleep at night if I knew that I was a shill for one or two of the parties. And also their dental coverage could have been better. So I did not agree, unfortunately. So it's just me for now. But, no wonder everyone in Washington has veneers, eh? They got it all except that. So, but hey, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for watching. We didn't have as many special effects and jump scares and stuff as last year, but given the current political climate, I think you have had enough scares. And, we're going to take a chill pill this year. We're going to take a chill pill. If you really wanted to be scared, you'd open Twitter and look at the trending topics. We've got 1 week to go. When you see this, it might be 5 or 6 days. I don't know if this is going to come out on the 30th or on Halloween itself. But, yeah. Who knew that the biggest horror of all comes 5 days after the holiday of Halloween? Who knew? Who knew? Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I will tip my crown to you. Happy Halloween. And goodbye, everybody. Thank you.
We will leave you with a... I can't do it. We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Fucking thing sucks.
Write that down, write that down!